Hi, I'm Maggie. Thank you for stopping by Crafts the Charm today. You are most welcome here. I like to play a game called Design Home, which is a room decorating game. And the furniture pieces that are in the rooms are from actual companies and designers like West Elm and Tommy Bahama and Kathy Kuo. But the art that's in the room and the other decor pieces, I think, are made by the artists who work for Design Home. And some of them are really, really cool. So there's one that I wanted to recreate, and it involves some curved wood and some wrought iron pieces. And I had thought that maybe I could use these Dollar Tree, these are plastic. They are garden edging pieces, but they're made to look like wrought iron. But I was worried about the curved wood pieces, and I wasn't sure I wanted to get into a woodworking project that was very involved. And then I went into the Dollar Tree one day, and they had these other garden edging pieces, which are molded to look like wood, and they have this curved piece. So I think if I combine a few of both of these pieces, that I can make the piece or something like the piece from Design Home, and I'm really looking forward to trying. Let's go have some fun. Now we'll start with the white edging, and the first thing I did was remove the lattice from the inside. This was a little bit difficult to work with. I found the best way to cut it was to flip it over and use a sharp knife, this is a box cutter, to cut the plastic has edges, so cut the edges with the box cutter knife, and then turn it over and cut across the plastic, again with the box cutter knife. But because you've already cut those thicker edge pieces, it should cut pretty easily. Once you've got the lattice inside removed, you're going to cut off the little stakes that you would use to stick it in the dirt. And again, I used the same method with the box cutter knife, although it's possible you could use a strong set of shears to cut these off pretty easily. And the same thing with the little pieces on either side of the edging, and those are intended to link several pieces of edging together. Now you're going to cut the curved part and the straight part at the bottom and then stick them back together. So I wanted to test some different glues to see what glue would work best. And I thought I would use the old popsicle stick method, where you use a piece of popsicle stick and glue the popsicle stick to the two pieces of plastic that you're gluing together. So I'm going to try out super glue and E6000 and my low temperature hot glue. Now with the super glue, I didn't want to start a new container, so I didn't have very much super glue left in this little container. So I tried to squeeze out as much as I could, but it's possible I did not give the super glue a fair chance. I did get some out. And then you want to let this all cure. The super glue only needs to cure for about 15 seconds or so, and the same thing with the low temperature hot glue, but the E6000 really needs 24 hours. So I let this cure for 24 hours. And once they had cured, the super glue didn't work really at all. Again, that could have been my fault for not using enough. But the E6000 and the hot glue both worked quite well. Now, the problem with hot glue, of course, is this is going to be outdoors, and I'm thinking of it as a spring decor, but possibly also summer decor. So hot glue can melt. So what I am going to do is use a combination of hot glue and E6000. Let's start by cutting this first, though. I sort of used a popsicle stick along with my XActo mat to come up with lines. And I would recommend, with this phase, that you mark straight lines and make sure that your lines on each end of the piece of garden edging are even with each other. So maybe use a very long ruler or a long level to mark and then cut. But use the same method to cut that we've been using with the box cutter. I really did find that was the easiest way for me to cut this. And you're going to cut out that middle piece so that we can move the curved part right down onto the straight part. So once that's all cut apart, we're going to use, this is one of the larger popsicle sticks, and I did buy it at the Dollar Tree. And these are quite easy to cut. In this case, I'm cutting in half with some nice strong shears. And so I'm going to use, again, a combination of E6000, so E6000 in the middle, and my low temperature hot glue on either end of the stick. And the reason I'm doing that is because the hot glue gives it a hold for right now, and the E6000 is more like the permanent hold. So the same way that you might use wood glue and some nails to hold something in place while the glue is curing, we're going to use the hot glue as our nails. So you're going to do this for all 4 pieces. So we end up with 4 pieces, which are a straight piece with a curved top. Now there are a lot of sort of holes in the piece where we took the lattice out and the little stakes off the bottom. So what I'm doing here is I'm using the smaller popsicle sticks or craft sticks, and again I got these from the Dollar Tree, and cutting them to the size of the holes and just sort of covering the holes with them. I'm not sure this is necessary, but you can see the holes. From a distance they would not be visible. And of course this leaves us with a wooden piece, and the popsicle sticks aren't exactly the right height. They're maybe a tiny bit too tall. So if you do this, you're going to probably want to paint over where the popsicle sticks are. I don't particularly like the finish on these pieces. I feel it's a little bit too shiny and a little bit too white. So I am going to spray paint these with a slightly off-white spray paint, and I will try to get all of the areas that I filled in as well. Now, an alternative to using the popsicle sticks is to simply use some cardboard from your kitchen. Like in this case, this is a pasta box, and just that's much easier, of course, to cut little pieces of cardboard and fill in. And if you already have the cardboard, that method is free. So I actually did use more cardboard than popsicle stick. Now we are just going to adhere the 4 pieces together. If you use the configuration that I'm using here, then it will fit the inner pieces of faux wrought iron that we put together. But of course you could alter this, do it in whatever configuration you want, and put the faux wrought iron in however you want. So what I did initially was I used just E6000 to connect these pieces together, and then I did not let it cure long enough before I decided to spray paint it. And I let it cure about 12 hours. And I spray painted it on a windy day, and the wind blew it and bent it. but I wasn't that confident about the E6000 anyway. So what I recommend is using pieces of wire. And I'm going to use just 22 gauge florist's wire. I find it very useful. So I would recommend making a hole between the two pieces where you're going to adhere them together and putting the florist's wire through, then putting E6000 between them, and then using the florist's wire to pull it very tightly together. So you'll see when I do it, I do the E6000 all the way around, and then after I go in, cut the holes with my knife and put the florist's wire through. I also use a little bit of white duct tape just to cover up that wire so that it doesn't scratch up whatever surface this is leaning against or hanging against. Now that we've finished the frame, we can work on the faux wrought iron inside, and I find this a little bit easier to work with. I can generally just cut it with shears, and so I'm just going to cut off first of all the little stakes that we use to put it in the ground if we're using it as a garden edging. And we're going to use 2 pieces of this edging for the inside. So cut off the stakes at the bottom and cut off the connectors on either side, or you really only need to cut off the connectors on one side, the side where you're going to have the group of 3 pieces. Now when you're cutting this stuff, you want to be mindful of how you want it to appear. So what we want is 3 pieces with the complete frame around each of the pieces. So we want to cut between that 3rd piece and the last piece on the end, which isn't going to be part of this set of 3, so that we're leaving the frame with that 3rd piece. And that means that that last piece won't have the frame completely around it. Now with this last piece, and again, we could have left the connectors on the side, what we're going to do is just try to make it symmetrical. So we're just going to cut off basically that frame that's on, in this case, the right side, because I took the 3 pieces to the left, but you could have done it the other way. So we're going to cut off that frame and try to cut off that corner in the lower right, just because there's no corner on the left side. But if you look at the underneath, you'll see that there's a place where the plastic is thicker, and so you just want to try to avoid that because that's very hard to cut through. The inside of our frame is 20 inches wide, or left to right, by 23 inches tall, or top to bottom. So I found it was easiest to put the inner part together by taping it down lightly with some masking tape, getting the measurements correct and getting everything lined up, and then using the low temperature hot glue to glue the little pieces on top, and that holds the whole thing together. it holds it together, but again, as I mentioned, if this is going to be out in warm weather, the hot glue could melt. So I again turned to my 22 gauge florist's wire and used that in, I think, 4 places to just tie basically the pieces together. And it's a dark green, so I don't think it's very noticeable. Now, I used a little bit of black acrylic paint just to touch up places where it had been cut, but you could also take this into a well-ventilated area and give it a coat of flat black spray paint, and that would take care of the wire as well. You really can't see the wire on this, so I didn't feel the need to do that. Once the 2 pieces are constructed, the frame and the inside, all we need to do is connect them together. So again, I thought the best way to do this would be with that 22 gauge florist's wire. So I lined up that inner piece so it was centered inside the frame. And then I used my box cutter knife and cut 3 holes, one over each of those, I'm not quite sure what to call them, fleur-de-lis sort of, that are in the inside part, and then I just slipped the wire around the top of the frame of those pieces and then through the outer frame, the outer white frame. And again, I duct taped that on the back just so that it wouldn't scratch whatever it was resting against. Now, I did pick up these 3 vines from the Dollar Tree, and I would have preferred ivy, but they happened to have these, and I thought they were attractive enough. So I thought that this piece could work 2 ways. Here it is without any ivy decor, and this is the spot on my porch where I like to hang something outside. It's between these 2 windows. And here it is with the garland. I'd love to know what you think. What did you think of our outdoor decor piece? Did you prefer it with or without the leaf garland? Did you make it, and did you make a variation? And do you have suggestions for me? As always, I'm interested in your suggestions. I'll be honest, I'm never going to like faux wood or faux wrought iron as much as I like the real thing, but this was such an easy and inexpensive way to get that look without having to do a woodworking project or a project with wrought iron, which is completely beyond anything I've ever done and beyond my ability and tools. I like working with the Dollar Tree wrought iron garden edging. I think that it's very good quality and it really does have a nice look to it. I found the white edging a little more difficult to work with, and it was quite flimsy. So I think that if I were going to make the project again, I would probably make it with real wood. That part of the project, the outer edge of it, wouldn't be so difficult to make with real wood, and I think it would improve the look of the final piece. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. And if you like this sort of content, please consider subscribing to Crafts the Charm. Thank you for spending time with me today. Take care.